Good day, welcome back. This next in my video on chess stats, where I just investigate some of the statistics behind the game of chess in terms of games that have been played, error rates, opening frequencies, all these sorts of things. And today I'm looking at the concept of opposite side castling. There's a few blogs on the internet about this, and I just wanted to do my version of it just to sort of confirm the values and the statistics behind it, right? So the idea is that in a chess game, some rough stats, 70, 80%, people both castle kingside, maybe 70%, and then a sort of a 10%, let's say, or maybe lower, castling queenside versus kingside, opposite side casting. And also there's the other possibility of both people casting on the queenside. Just want to run through the numbers. And the idea is that what I want to get at is, first of all, what players have certain styles in terms of the way they do their castling. And then obviously the biggie, how much does the openings influence the frequency of opposite side casting? Obviously it does. Sicilian Dragon probably has a 100% rate, so, or particularly Yugoslav attack. And so that's what we're going to look at today. And it's just this interaction of openings, the individual players, and the eras they're in all sort of come up with sort of some statistics, sort of the level castling. So what I'm going to do is sort of take you through the process. Let me switch to the capture screen. Process and the data I've used. So you get it, look at that, and then the approach I've taken, analysis I've done, and we'll come up with statistics at the end. So just sort of, probably missed a lot of things. If you look at the way I've done it, other people can do deeper analysis. Okay, so first of all, the data we're looking at, right? Okay, so there's a couple of things you need here. Obviously, we want just a set of games, right? And that set of games will have players, and they'll have castle queenside or not. And we need to match that against the player names and back against the openings, and then that's when we can sort of gather all the statistics. I did want to do it by era as well. You'll see that in some of the queries I've been doing, but didn't sort of finish that analysis. Maybe somebody else can have a look at that. However, so let's go through the tools I'll be using. First of all, we'll be using Python Chess. Now you have a look there. The main reason we're doing Python Chess is actually to step through the opening moves. We'll also be using Scoutfish. Have a look at how we use that. So just sort of the run over the general idea. What I've been able to do here is I've started off doing it from the opening perspective. The first analysis we're going to do by the players, but obviously that drops out of the opening analysis. And we have a list of openings. Probably good to have a look at what it looks like. So here is the ECO file I have. You can find this on the internet, right? And basically you can see the ECO code. Not really worried about that. The opening's name and then the move sequence. So my attitude here was I want to see how each opening is influencing the casting rate. So basically, what you do is you play those moves out, and you get a fen of that position, and then you search for that fen in the game database, which is I've taken maybe CASA, or I can't actually remember which one it was. I've filtered them to games by masters, I think above 2,600, so you got a manageable data set. And then so you search that database of games for all the fens that come up, 9H3, one fen, match that with Amar opening, and go through all of them, right? There's a couple of thousand lines, but Scoutfish is very quick. And you come back with the number of games and then a list of the games, and you go through the list of the games, and then you do another Scoutfish analysis, this time looking for, actually you can do it in one step, but looking for, is it casting on the king side or is it casting on the queen side? And then you end up with four numbers effectively for each of the five numbers. Number of games, number of king side castle, both sides, number of king and queen side both ways, that's 2, and then queen side castling, and then obviously the gap there between the 5th number is the no castling. So that's sort of the idea. So we're going to go through each line here, calculate the fen, search that game, have a set of games, and then work out what the casting rate in those openings are. Okay, so the next step would be just have a quick look here at the sort of the search we are doing. So once you've got the fen you're searching for, you see this is the fen, I call it sub fen. You work out the fen you're searching for on each of these openings, and by that position, you actually some positions will already be determined. There will already have been a king side castling and already have been a queen side castling. I'd say work out these parameters. White is castle king side and black is castle the king side. That means this is in the both castle on the king side set, which is what this little block of code here is looking for. It's already true as long as you've hit that fen in the game. So that's it. So I was also trying to search for era as well. I actually do it by year, and then I actually just smash them together in the end anyway. I mean, later on I might want to look at sort of casting rates through time, but I think it's going to be quite heavily determined by the openings with people playing anyway. So you've got to do this searches, but if we're looking for king side and queen side castling, if we're looking for both castle king side, then if white has already castled on the king side, you want to search for that the position occurs and that black moves castles. Right, the lines repeat, it doesn't really matter. So that's what you do. And then if you're looking for both sides castle on the king side and neither has castled so far, then you've got to do all these other searches. The position occurs, white castles, then black castles later on, or position occurs, black castles, and white castles later on. I'm a bit unsure about whether I needed to be quite so granular in terms of the move order and so on, but that's sort of the search. So that comes back and it gives me the answer. Those for each opening, you'll have 5 parameters: number of games, number of both castle king side, white queen side, black king side, white king side, black queen side, and both castle queen side. So you can set it up and that's where all my data analysis will then come from. So I hope that's sort of a sort of decent summary of what the approach is. And then as well as doing by opening, I also aggregated across all of the openings. So, and then within that, grab player information. So just to quickly go back to the way you do that in the tools we've got. So if you ever look at Scoutfish, so that was all the searching Scoutfish. Now Scoutfish actually returns this, which is very quick. If you want to know the number of games, that's it. Yeah, it satisfies a condition. And then it gives you offsets into your PGN file. So then to get the player names, you then have to go into the PGN file to those offsets. It does it for you automatically. There's a special procedure to give you the PGN back, and then you just use string functions to get the black color and the white color. And then so what I did is then added them into BA. So you got all the white color and black color, and then this I just want to show this. So the idea is that for move in first game, so you basically from the ECO file you got a list of moves, and then basically you play them through the game, and then you get a fen, and that's where you get the fen from. So that's sort of where those two programs fit in. And then what shall we go to? One other thing I wanted to do is I did kind of restrict a list of names I look at, by the way. So this is originally from Chess Metrics, and I grabbed the top 100 players of all time, and then I have gradually added in players of more recent time, which, like all these players down here, I've added in. They're missing out. So I've got a list of 168 players, I think, who I filter it down to, and then you come up with charts like this. So first of all, so that's all the background to it. So now let's have a look at players. Who are the players who are most known for castling? So we'll just run my little code here, and here's his scatter plot, right? So the x-axis is the percent opposite side castling, and the y-axis is the percent kingside castling, both sides. So that's what that code there means. This is opposite side castling, doesn't matter who's on the queen side, and this is both people play kingside castling. Now, I like this chart. The red dots, by the way, they're World Chess Champions. It's a good summary. It tells you like the player styles. If you're a very traditional player, then you're likely to have high rate of kingside castling and lower rates of queenside castling, or opposite side castling, let's say. So Capablanca, Fine, Reshevsky, also defined by the era and the openings that they play. But you can see that that's actually defines them well. They're probably more old school, traditional players, proper chess. And then you get down to the other side of the scale, Makarov and Udison, not too familiar with those players, but you can see that a few of these other ones, none, right? I think he's known for some very creative opening play, so that's where the queenside castling comes in. Shirov, obviously, Timan, Morozevich, and that sort of set of plays. Topalov, and actually got Miles over there. So these guys, bit wacky. Not really a bit wacky, but they were obviously more aggressive, so they ended up casting queenside more often. You castle queenside more often, then there's obviously logically both sides casting kingside is left often. So you end up with a set of players. And Steinitz was known for being quite innovational, right? So it actually looks like, particularly what stands out for him is he didn't tend to have games where both sides castled kingside. I mean, often he just moved his king and stuff like that. So he's kind of a standard. And his era is also quite unusual for his era, but because I think we've got like maybe we don't have too many other players from his era. And then you got Lasker and Fischer, Kasparov, and Ant. Actually, it's not surprising these all players are bunched together. And Botvinnik is another guy who played a little bit unusually. I mean, some of the openings he played, like the French and the Dutch, perhaps leaded in to that. And so that's sort of a definition of the player styles. And then I think the next few pages is just sort of clarifying that, right? So who castled queenside the most? Now, this is the whole thing about, it takes two to tango, right? If you're in a Yugoslav attack of the Sicilian, then both sides are obviously spoiling for a fight, and both sides are kind of looking for that opposite side castling. So that's why It doesn't really matter who actually did the castling queenside as far as I'm concerned. Let's say you got a few of those players I mentioned, Nunn, Morozovic, Larson as well, another creative, highly creative player. Shirov very attacking, and Liko quite high up, Parlov and so on. So that's just opposite side castling. The players who stand out there, that's the highest percentage, and they've got the lowest percentage. These are the traditional sort of more players. We have Kappa at the. I'm sorry, didn't flip the chart. Capablanca is the least. Fine. Reshevsky, Anderson, quite positional player. That's not the immortal game guy. Tarish, Floor, Schlechter. I guess you'd say these are kind of, and Smyslov, the second of the world champions, Karpov. So more traditional players than other ones. So that all makes kind of sense. And the next one is highest percentages of both castling king side. It'll be a flip side of the chart. Reshevsky, fine, Capablanca. Ding shows up on this one, and Smyslov, so perhaps more solid world chess champions, and then Carlsen of the more recent world chess champions in the era. And then the final chart we have here is the lowest percentage both sides cast a king side. Steinitz really stood out along with your Timmans and your Miles and your Shirov. Right. So that is, I've got some tables here. So that's a nice little overview of a set of charts on the player side of the equation. And as I said, but obviously all sort of the meat of the analysis is actually having gone through all of the lines of the ECO and for each of the openings determining which ones have the highest opposite castling percentages, which is what we're really going to look for in this next bit of the analysis. So now let me have a look at a new set of charts. Okay, so the analysis, I've already done that, and I've created some files, which is basically stored opposite side castling percentages for the different openings in different files. And we're just going to step through them one by one. Pause at any time if you want to have a closer look at these charts. There's a whole bunch of charts. I'm doing it as much for myself. I've seen some of them, haven't seen other ones. Just quite interesting to see the evolution of the frequency of openings, but also the tendency of certain openings to lead to opposite side castling. So the way I'm going to run this, I'm going to start at 3, which means a ply of 4. Okay, you can see it there. So a couple of things to bear in mind with this chart. So most played openings, and this represents 74% of total openings. So there's another 25% of other stuff. You can see it sort of outlining King's Knight opening. Obviously, that's leading into the Royal pairs and the Italian game and so on. Queen's Gambit declined. Caracan, Queen's Pawn game. And the interesting thing is I've got sort of some color coding. If it's green or towards the green or yellow towards green, then it means that opposite card castling is more frequent in that opening than other openings. I've just sort of scaled it to give you a bit of a sense. So obviously Sicilian defense, modern variations like d6, I'll move to by black, can lead to open Sicilians. Of those openings, of the most frequent openings, it's the one which is most associated with opposite side castling. No surprises there. French defense also quite prominent, and we'll see that going forwards. Caracan also quite prominent. Obviously depends on the line, and you get that sense. Whereas obviously the standard King's Pawn openings don't have such an element of opposite side castling. Okay, cool. So that's the first chart, if that makes sense. And the second chart on each one is, so that was the most frequent openings. Now we just get the same list of openings at that ply of 4, which are the ones with the highest percentage opposite side castling. And you can see at the top, center, game accepted. A lot of opposite side casting, a lot of casting queenside by black, but I guess also by white. So it topped it up 50%. Amazing. If you want to have some sort of rushes to mate, then maybe that's the opening for you. Queen's Pawn game, Chigrin variation. I mean, this is, you can see it's quite an unusual opening because normally people would be playing c4. So that one, I'm not really familiar with how that evolves. I think that drops off my chart fairly quickly. And then I've bars which have Sicilian defense in the name, I've highlighted with red. So obviously we've got the Tarlemov variation, which I've never heard of, but then you've got the modern variations, which we just looked at, and the Queen's Fanchetto. They're quite strange Sicilians, but obviously Sicilians still, opposite side casting will happen quite a lot. Blue is variations of the French defense, and you can see that we're talking about 20 to 30% opposite side castling here. And the other one, part of there is yellow. Caracan also has a lot of opposite side castling. It's been in the sort of the Panov Botvinnik lines. Okay, and remember the opposite side castling can happen in some of these variations, like the French defense, maybe because the king side gets obliterated on the black side of the board, so he wants to castle on the side. So now we can move along, just going to step through. 4 actually means apply a 5. Frequency of the top 10. So now it's out of 65% of total games are these top 10 openings here. Now that's split up in the Royal pairs and the Italian game. That makes a lot of sense. We've got Sicilian defenses, which are still green. So they're the ones which have the tendency for upside castling. And then you've got the French defense, Paulson variation. And we'll see these split up a little bit clearly later on. You've got some King's Indian defence type lines, so they'll come to the fore later on. But at this stage, a lot of these more Queen's Pawn game haven't sort of got to the situation where you end up committing to opposite side castling, which you have with the Sicilian defence already. And then the other chart here, we can see, look at the centre game at the top, Scandinavian, somehow similar, a couple of Frenches, only one Sicilian line there now. Still about 20 to 30% castling and Caracan in there quite prominently. Keep moving. As I say, stop and have a close look at these charts at any time you want to. I'm just going to go through them one by one. So now the top 10 most frequent lines at apply of 6 is only 6% of the openings. Now, by the way, if there's some really weird opening, Hungarian opening or something, which doesn't have variations going further down, they'll have just dropped off. So actually, this 60% of total is overstating it because there are other games which that's 60% of the games which still have an ECO code at this point. Maybe that's the right way of interpreting it. So you can see I spent a lot of time on this because actually there are some tricks in it. The Morphy defense with Royal Lepez, that's great. Sicilian defense, open Sicilian, of course. And then French defense. Well, it's just a Sicilian defense. French variation. Okay, that's great. It's got an E6 in there, so that's okay. That's more like a Taimanov or a Scheveningen, perhaps. Berlin defense, very prominent now, and Nimzo Indian defense. But you can see that most of these variations here, not really known for queenside castling. And then now we go to the ones with the most frequent opposite side castling. Sicilian defense, a few lines of Sicilian defenses. Maquinas, Cowls. Okay, that involves that's an English opening. Sicilian. So I've cheated here. that shouldn't be marked red, but never mind. And you've got a French defense and a Caracan. So the same sort of tendencies there. Centre game still at the top. Apply of 7, still 60% of total. And you can see that the change here, right? That what's happened is that the Royal Lepez is obviously split off into a number of different variations after you got Morphy. I mean, it could be the exchange variation and maybe some Steinitz style variations. So the frequencies dropped down quite a lot. Berlin defense has popped in there, and French defense, and according to this, Caracan Panov attack has actually become most frequent. Of course, Panov attack with that fan could have evolved from perhaps even a Queen Pawn game. So that's probably why it's got such a high frequency, and then the French defense as well. And then now we look at the opposite side castling percentages, and we've still got. Actually, we seem to have changed a lot, didn't it? So it seems like a lot of the Sicilian defense at this point they don't have a name. That's probably the right way of thinking about it. Whereas a lot of the French defense ones have a name; they're quite prominent. Whereas Sicilian defense will come back with some of our old favourites. Right, Sicilian defense, modern variations, mainline. Okay, cool. Slab defense, exchange variation, good. So this is 49% of total games with an ECO code. So the percentage of the top 10 is dropping down through time. And then now we look at the highest opposite side castling percentages, and we've got a Caracan in at 40%. See why I highlighted Caracan as yellows, and another Caracan here. And now you've got a bunch of Sicilian defenses. So playing Sicilian defense is Taimanov. E6 lines turned into Taimanov. Side casting 20% of the time. Just a sort of a standard open Sicilian. So I think we're heading the right way. I mean, we just basically wanted to say, for instance, maybe Najdorf and Dragon at some point in time. One opening hasn't popped up yet, so because it's probably not refined enough. So let's keep going. 9 moves. Royal Lepez Morphy defense. So this is presumably where it sort of got his name back, because maybe after Bishop A4 it didn't have a name. So this is the sort of one of the mistakes or errors of the way I've done the analysis. But nothing's perfect. Just want to give you a good guide anyway. Just think about the sort of the way things work. Panov attack's still there, and it's just the Taimanov one is the only one which is green, which is sort of a more of a tendency to have opposite side casting. So by and large, openings which people play tend to have lower percentages of opposite side castling. You can see that, right? So, and then now some very specific lines. The Lolly variation of the Scotch game, 70% opposite side castling. Very strange where that one came from. A line of the Petrov, line of the exchange variation. Another line of the Scotch game. So, you wouldn't have thought that actually. And presumably these games, the actual frequency of the game is quite small. I mean, I could do a sort of scatter plot to show that. And then now we've got a number of French defense games and a number of Sicilian. So Accelerated Dragon is there. Taimanov variation is there. Prince variation is good. Right? So, and this is the one other opening, which really it'll show up quite apparently in a little while, is King's Indian defense. Seems to have particular lines of it, quite preponderant of castling queen side. Let's keep going. So this is after move 10 now. There we go. Knight off. Excellent. So after 10 moves, knight off is the most popular opening, just behind the closed Roy. And then on top of that, you got the Taimanov and the classical variation. So Sicilians leading the way in terms of opposite side castling, but there's a lot of other openings there which are being played, which are less known for opposite side castling. And here is the opposite side castling percentages. Okay, Royal pairs, exchange variation, King's Bishop variation. I mean, this must be very specific. And there's the dragon. We finally got the dragon. Realistically, it would be much more frequent than that Roy we're talking about. And classical variation, Sicilian, Black Mar Gambit. Not obviously I've heard of it, but I don't play that one. That's there. And Najdorf, so on. Caracan, still there. And it seems to be the same-ish variation of the King's Indian Defence is the one where you've got much more preponderance of opposite side castling. Go to 10, English attack, King's Indian, Orthodox variation. Well, Lasker Pelican, I guess that's Sveshnikov. Not too sure if they renamed that. And Richter Rouser. So it's all the usual suspect. Here's another Najdorf. So you can see at this depth, which is like pi of 11, all the Sicilians are showing up. And here they are. Dragon, Richter Rouser, English attack. I don't know what Mestrikov is. Sozin, English attack in the Najdorf. Adams attack in the Najdorf. Najdorf, freak attack. Okay, Rook G1. Just what everybody does. And then the Caracan and Frenches. So really, I just like this. Just sort of let it sink in, the sorts of openings you're looking for. Okay, one more level of depth. And you can see the Richter Rouser is the one which is in the top 10. But you can see it's down to 43% so this is less than half the games now in the top 10. But King's Indian Defence, same-ish variation. Orthodox variation, more than 50% opposite side castling. Another same-ish variation, very high percentage. And then mixed in with Richter Rouser, Sozin attacks, classical variations, Najdorf variation, and still got a Caracan in there and a bunch of Frenches. Going to stop at a certain point. Royal pairs closed, so still one of the most frequent openings. And you can see Sicilian defence, French defence are the ones which are still leading the charge of opposite side casting, as they should be. Sozin attack, Richter Rouser. Here we go. We might stop here. Dragon variation, Yugoslav attack, early deviation. There we go, one more depth. All the usual favourites. French defence, King's Indian Defence. See if we can get this. Gives us the Yugoslav attack. Royal pairs. That's just the frequency of the openings. Here we go. Dragon variation, Yugoslav attack. Numero uno, 90% castling opposite sides. French defence, classical variation, burn variation, main line. Also very high percentage. Caracan yellow. Yeah, the King's the same-ish should be green. King's Indian Defence, Petrosian. King's Indian Defence, same-ish. Pano formation. And that's actually a good picture to leave it on, actually. I think that sort of shows you exactly where I wanted to get to. It's kind of just reinforcing what we already know, to be honest. But I think it was really interesting. I found it really interesting to go through this and sort of just have a look at, where these things step in. And obviously those ones, 90%, if you're going for that, white or black, you know what you're in for. But a little bit of surprise, the burn variation of the French up there, the same-ish variation, I guess that makes sense. That might be one of the cases where there's could be a bit of a meltdown on the king side because of the F3 formation by white and a whole other bunch of Sicilians, and Caracan is also quite a frequent guest of this. But then, here we go, right down the bottom. Italian game, Evans Gambit, compromised defense. I think it's where you take everything, isn't it? Quite often leads to opposite card castling. I believe that white, he will not be castling queenside because he doesn't have any pawns left over there. So presumably black castles queenside in that line. So, there's actually, here's another one, Lasker defense, right? So there's actually a lot more here than I thought. So feel free to sort of think about it. And I showed you how to do the analysis, so maybe other people can sort of try different angles on this. But yeah, okay. So look, I've done chess stats for a while. I thought it was quite interesting. So hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching.